nice and early so I could get up for this because I knew we were going to have a lot of good games. But yeah, I definitely have to say these two, if you're looking for exciting matches, good matches, this is the one that should hopefully be the explosive start that we want today, as we are loaded in to 2,000 atmospheres in the Northeast. We have the blue Protoss player. He is MaxPax.
In the bottom left is the red Zerg. He is live.
The hatchery is not in the normal natural spot, but it unfortunately is not on the other side of the map. So I'm a little disappointed to start the day, Zombie Grub. You know, it's like I saw the thunder clouds. I saw a little bit of lightning, but there was no rain. Maybe game 2 or a potential game 3, we can begin the descent into madness. But MaxPax, I'm more curious as to, I guess, which direction he's gonna go. We've seen Bly do stuff where he's like, oh yeah, I'll just take the third base because you might block my natural, but he's actually using it because it's still a shorter rush distance to get to the enemy for some sort of early attack. So it won't completely write off him yet. And neither will MaxPax, keeping the probe in there and well until I think he's going to be shoot out. Information against a guy like Bly has to be the most valuable thing you can get, right?
Yes. And the same could be said for MaxPax, but I do think that, you know, as far as the timings go, earlier, minute, 0 to 5, I think it is like, okay, what is Bly doing? Like, what's tricky? And then 5 and beyond is like, okay, what's MaxPax doing? Is he being tricky? I mean, at this point, not even really tricky, right? To go into the mass void rays or into very quick tempests, which I don't believe he does on this particular map. But, I guess as MaxPax was even more unique a year and a half ago, I guess, before everyone was doing a lot of these things. Yeah, now it is almost normal. So aside from proxy hatches and cannon rushes, we can actually see these guys play out an expected PVZ. The Stargate opener from MaxPax, and then Bly, well, being aggressive, the normal aggressive, a good old queen walk across the map, and you can't blame Bly for doing that.
Well, and that's a popular strategy for a reason, and it's because it works, right? We've seen with all the Stargate play over the last year and a half, especially. I mean, I did get to tune in. I was watching that Mana Raynor series yesterday, and even I'm like, okay, I really feel like Raynor is, he's on a different level than Mana, but at some point, if you're able to get that Doom Toss army up, with all the carriers or Tempest, whatever variety you like to have, whether it's, more sugar or more maple syrup on your pancakes, doesn't really matter. If you get to that meaty composition, things just get really difficult for the Zerg. So I wouldn't be surprised if we have that early push, because that, as we know, is super popular. The Void Ray is coming out to start, going to be followed up by the Oracle. So that Stargate play should be absolutely no surprise to anybody. This is as bread and butter as PvZ is going to be these days. So that's something to keep my eye out for, Zombie Grub. I guess with the way that hatchery was taken, the creep is going to spread out to the center of the map a bit faster too, right?
Yeah, which might also lend to MaxPax taking this base as opposed to the horizontal one, which also kind of would be pushing him towards Bly, as the atmospheres, this map actually has kind of a middle that isn't just directly across. You got some rocks. That's always going to be in the forefront. How quick can those queens get over to my base? And is there anything I can do to make it a little bit farther away and give them a little bit more trouble? Because as we have had the probe into the Adept, into eventually an Oracle, was Void Ray first, all of the scouting to see if Bly's doing anything tricky before the 5-minute mark, it's done, and he's not. So then we talk about the more normal mid-game aggression. Sure, Bly could still throw out like 30 surprise links, because he is certainly someone who could do that, to just bop the third Nexus. Yeah, that's still what you want to look out for. That's what the Oracle's also trying to do. And it just is not something I think even Bly usually risks nowadays, with how well guarded Protoss can make themselves with this Stargate opener.
Yeah, the safety level that it assures you. I mean, back in the day, it was like, okay, oracles are good. Void Rays, meh, you build a safety Void Ray if you feel like you need to. And then Void Rays kind of fell into this place where now they are just a solid staple option that you'll see almost every game, unless somebody really wants to avoid them or it's some sort of like mind game. But we've already got the second Stargate finishing up. +1 air weapons for Protoss is almost done. So we're going to be seeing those Void Rays poke a little bit better. We know that they don't really do much to the Zerg ground to air, since they don't do bonus damage to the Queens or the Hydralisks. Spores, I guess, if that comes into play, but having that little bit of extra damage, since you don't get the bonus, will still help if that kind of push does come. And I think clearing the creep and preventing Bly from maybe destroying these rocks even is something he's going to have to keep on the table. Oracle almost getting killed as it tags on the way out. But I feel like you just want to make sure that you're not getting that big push on you. And then once you feel comfortable that you can actually get that fleet bacon up and your +2 upgrades and start moving into carriers, then you can kind of ease up on the pedal and you're feeling good about stuff. And that's what's coming. That's what's coming, Zombie Grub. +1 is finishing. There's the fleet beacon. There's the third Stargate. MaxPax, he is in no rush. He would love to just sit here for a nice little NR10 and just chill out.
Bly, same boat. You know, we're just constantly waiting, holding our breaths for Bly to really be the aggressor, I suppose, because MaxPax kind of showed us his intentions with the Stargate and the second Stargate. Very defensive. Added a robo to maybe get into disruptors quickly if he needed to. Didn't really need to, so now it's Fleet Beacon. And then Bly, waiting like, okay, Lings? No. Queens? No. And in fact, actually really hadn't added anything but this very strong economical start, getting up to as many drones as possible, pushing off the Roach Warren until as late as possible, and has not been punished. Now he's being harassed a little bit, and it's a bit bothersome, but again, he did almost get up to 80 drones, is about to get up to almost 90, 5 bases, and that Spire just finished. He's got a bank to make whatever he wants out of here, and though we actually have both of these guys setting up for that later game. The question is, who's better in that later game?
Yeah, and that is where I start to get a little bit curious here, because when I think about Bly, I don't know that he has that reputation of being the big crazy mega late game Giga Chad kind of roll you over sort of dude. But at the same time, I know that some of his games get really weird and go really long, and it's not like he still doesn't have that level of experience, right? So as he goes into the Corruptors, those are obviously going to be nice against the carriers. They have that +2 carapace built in, so the interceptors usually don't do as much damage. That's why you see that focus on the air upgrades. That +2 is huge, especially since Bly is going into attack for his airs. He wants to kill the carriers quickly. But those Void Rays, keeping them alive, at least threatening them, is going to be really important, just because they have the ability to melt those Corruptors down if they try to chase the carriers. And I think that's the biggest thing that we have to look at. And honestly, it's a little bit easier to deal with some of those Corruptor hit and runs than we used to see about a year or two ago, before the air toss style was super common, because it'd be like 20 stalkers trying to blink and kill them all before they peed on a Nexus. The Void Rays can actually push these guys out of the base.
And they can react super quickly when they have Flux Veins, which is about to finish. So Corruptor is not exactly the best harassment to begin with. They can kind of sneak, and the Void Rays are as fast as they're about to be. It's hard to even sneak. I'm going to try in one shot, but actually unsuccessfully one shot, so it's a 2-shot. That's kind of the most important factor here for some of these engagements. It's like, do you have enough units to actually just bop one of the big capital ships of the Protoss down? Because if you don't, and they keep on barely surviving whilst also adding more upgrades and more Void Rays specifically, especially now that MaxPax knows, okay, it's all Corruptors, then, eventually just Corruptors is not going to cut it. So if Bly is going to try and push the issue on this base, even though there's stacked defense, there's plenty of Void Rays, more to come. Does take down a couple of units. How many Corruptors did he lose in the process? So far, 8 Corruptors have gone down.
Really?
For
Wow.
2 Void Rays and a carrier.
Okay, I was gonna say, it's hard to see when they're all clumped up like this, how many he's picking off over the shield batteries. Comes in, dives, gets another one of the carriers, and this is definitely one of the strong ways to try and deal with this, Zombie Grub, right? Before all those upgrades kick in, before we get to that golden armada, being able to just come in, trim the fat on the carriers. As long as Bly maintains an economic advantage, it's not necessarily a bad move, right, to throw some Corruptors away, because those carriers take so much longer to build. They cost so much more. They represent such a meaningful amount of the supply, whereas if just the Void Rays try to go across the map and attack, is unlikely to tilt things completely in his favor. So getting some Lings and Banes on the ground, I think, is also really smart because there really isn't a ground presence at all. A couple of Zealots don't even have their speed yet. They're about to get it, but I don't think 4 Zealots are going to stop 14 Banelings and 50 Lings if the Corruptors are waiting to pounce on the Void Rays when they go between the bases.
I think you heard about that. The Banelings can be instrumental for getting rid of the stack defense. Once the shield batteries are gone and any miscellaneous cannons, and the Void Rays and the carriers do get easier to handle. Bly is actually going after the economy with the slow Banelings, which still requires some attention over there. Also requires some units being warped in if you wanted to try and save them. So far, the pull ended up being good enough, but all the carriers have been taken down. Now, that is usually a big problem because, you know, you want to get to a certain number of carriers and Void Rays plus the Mama ship. You know, you want to get to the perfect late game composition for Protoss. But actually, MaxPax very, you know, he recognizes that the anti-air right now is just those Corruptors. The Void Rays are the way to go. Once we start talking about Vipers, if we talk about Vipers, a Hive is here, but no Vipers are being made. Oh, Void Rays can be tricky. They clump awfully bad. And I want to see some High Templars, but we're not quite to that stage yet.
Yeah, the tech feels pretty tunnel visioned in a way. Like the robotics facility was put up. I'm not sure if he got the Robo Bay, if he was thinking about the possibility of what is it, the German Uber ride or whatever that push is with all the queens. But the focus moving into Void Rays, I think you hit the nail on the head, Jess. He's got to do something right now with these Voids, because if a bunch of Vipers come out, they are going to be really susceptible to that parasitic bomb, and having to deal with those on top of the Corruptors is never going to be easy. There are Roaches to deal with the Zealots. The Void Rays are coming up and dealing with those. I think you want to try to kill this hatch, maybe just get out or take the Corruptors if he's going to be willing to give them to you, but don't let the Queens trim these Void Rays down too much, because this is kind of everything that he has.
MaxPax actually ends up being able to take down the Corruptor force, as a lot of the units had to go over here to deal with some harassment, killing 20 plus drones. The Queen numbers will successfully defend against the Void Rays, sure, but there's a couple things at play here as we watch this finally get cleaned up. One, this did a massive amount of economic damage, and two, Bly was doing a style that really did have to have a massive amount of economy, because Corruptors are not cheap at all, and he was constantly trading them out. As Nate pointed out, like, it can be hard to see, like, oh, how many exactly went down? Well, in total, 44 Corruptors have been lost.
44 have died this game so far?
Exactly.
Jesus.
And then he just lost the economy that was already struggling to keep up with that type of trade.
Okay, so I retract my previous statement, or I'll clarify, issue an update, a patch perhaps, 1.01. It is okay to throw away the Corruptors when you have 3 more bases than your opponent. If you lose all of your hatcheries, then throwing away 44 Corruptors, you may find yourself, you know, living in a van down by the river, and not in a fun way either. So this one gets a little bit cautious for me, because the Corruptor count is not quite where it was before, but now he has to get ground resources to deal with the Templar that are coming out, and those charged Zealots that have been doing some work in this game, Jess. But Ultralisks, when you're kind of hurting for a little bit of that money, he's not maxed out, he's not building that bank. It's things are looking pretty nice here, I think, for MaxPax.
There's a reason we don't really see exactly what Bly has done here, as far as just, like, you know, he was pretty greedy, he wasn't worried about anything in the early game. That's fair enough. But then he went right into Corruptors. You see a lot more play around, you know, maybe a little Mutas first, and then some of that Ling Hydra, and that eventually will transfer over into your own just mass air Vipers, Infestors, Corruptors. I mean, we've seen late game PvZ before, but, you know, a lot of reasons we don't see it initially is that they are so damn expensive. And if you don't start the snowball, which is what Bly wanted to do, he wanted to just kind of get enough done that the next wave of Corruptors finally did the trick. If that doesn't happen, then you are really relying on them having just turtled and nothing to your economy. Because if that was the case, then Bly still feels okay about this game. A bit worried, perhaps, because we are getting super late game. But now that he's also got that big hiccup in his economy, his production, his flow of this game, yeah, I mean, the Corruptors, they look, you know, less and less good here. They really need those additional spellcasters to support them.
Yeah, those storms, or at least the feedback option, kind of takes the Vipers off the table a little bit too, since worth pointing out, we do still have, it's still mostly Void Rays, I think we'd like to see get that carrier count up as much as possible, but we talk about build time, we talk about resources. There's only so many options. I think if he gets this next base fully secured, we can see this DT harass. Maybe he doesn't even need it with what the Zealots are able to do. Pulling that army away is just buying a nice amount of time every time he's able to do so. But keep that creep cleared so the queens can't come bring the assist. And I think that's where he's going to be able to generate a lot of value. Lings go onto that top side base, but there's like 4 photon cannons really committing to the defense, and I like to see it. Not entirely all in range of the mineral line, but I think that that's okay. It hasn't been a huge loss, assuming that these banelings don't finish and blow them all up. But there's another big wave that's going to be going to that right side, hitting this nexus. But again, a lot of cannons left behind to defense should buy some time to react as the Void Rays are going to make their way over to the east side.
Recall has to be used, realizing it wasn't quite going to be fast enough to save all his probes. Bly, having done a great job recovering, that was a big blip in his economy. We saw that in the income graph. He's back to just, having a good enough economy to start some of these trades. He's definitely not back to being able to harass with those corruptors and lose as many as he did, right? But the Banelings destroying static defense and the Ultras trying to come through to kind of clean things up, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially as the Lings get more and more upgraded. Bly just needs to make sure to keep his economy alive and perhaps even think about taking some of these rich Vespian geyser bases before the map gets truly cut in half, right? But MaxPax actually not just going to sit back. He's amassed quite the army, Storms, Archon, Void Rays, and even a couple of carriers. I'm not sure Bly was quite prepared for this push out.
Yeah, he's building 7 Broodlords, Zombie. I was going to ask you, do you think he's maybe taking too much out of his anti-air capabilities against this army by doing that? Because now he's starting to rebuild the Corruptors, but I don't think he has enough to try to contest this at all. MaxPax's army looks kind of unstoppable against the composition Bly's headed into. I don't think the 7 Broodlords really going to accomplish much of anything. Maybe get 1 or 2 of the Templar, but they can't run away from this force.
Yeah, they might as well try and take down what they can. Some High Templars have gone down, but Storms have also gone down. Parasitic bombs splash every which way that we look, and the Void Rays took a hell of a lot of damage, but there's nothing to actually finish them off, as the Queens just can't do a good enough job. That was quick, wasn't it? I call it in a flash. Suddenly, game over. Bly down 80 supply, and no means to recover that supply.
When you talk about this kind of army, the word flash, I think, is really the important one to focus in on there, Zombie Grog, because all those laser beams flying out, lightning hands from the Archon. If I could kill bugs in my house shooting lightning out of my hands, that would be pretty cool. Assuming that we could avoid, obviously environmental hazards, but that's quite the force that he has is really the point that I'm trying to get at. And in that flash, everything died. Roaches as the follow-up, when there's still this many Void Rays over your base, it just kind of tells you everything about the state of the game. GG, MaxPax takes game number 1 in what felt like a convincing fashion. After that, there was this kind of almost teetering situation where he was getting that 4th base up right, and he was going between with the Corruptors, kind of diving the carriers over the shield batteries and cannons. But that's exactly why you build those shield batteries and cannons. MaxPax didn't break. He didn't lose too much in that build-up, ramp-up phase of the game, and he got to that golden armada that we all just love so much as it paves its way through the blood and guts of thousands of Zerg.
Yes, quite the description there. Yeah, I think Bly might have been, it makes sense as we think of Bly as a character, I suppose, that he would go for something that's still pretty darn aggressive right into Corruptors and trying to get that snowball, trying to get those pickoffs, and also perhaps trying to surprise MaxPax a little bit. Like MaxPax usually has to deal with a little more, like some of the other stuff that I mentioned, preparing for potential Queen Walk, maybe some Hydras first off, then into Corruptors. But I wasn't right into Corruptors. Problem was that it didn't actually work. Then you're dealing with MaxPax, the Protoss, who he was one of the original guys to really get comfortable with this style, especially defensive and living beyond means that we thought other people couldn't live through. So that was always going to be kind of the worrying point for me. And even though Bly did an okay job, I guess, recovering from that big loss of drones and trying to get to his own supreme late game composition, he certainly wasn't in position. And I do think you're right to maybe question some of the compositional choices towards the very end there.
Yeah, That's kind of why, you know, when we talk about the builds that are popular and whatnot, like the Queen Marches and stuff, because you have a little bit more sturdiness. You don't take the bonus damage from the Void Rays, and you force the Protoss to commit to something on the ground a little bit earlier. I'm just thinking about how he was on 4 bases when he started charge, right? There were only like 3 zealots before it even finished too. It's not like there was some army waiting to get this upgrade that was going to storm into action. It was like, no, I basically got 3 Stargate carrier without really anything else, and I didn't get punished for it because he built plenty of Void Rays, and Bly kind of played this dive comp. I'm gonna go for a bunch of corruptors really early and just try and kill you, but it didn't work. You know, if there's anybody who understands the value of defensive cannons and batteries, it's got to be MaxPax, right? And here we are, loaded into game 2 on Blackburn.
Did you actually say the player name?
Oh no! That was just a really bad handoff by me. Call me Blake Bortles or something.
No, it was just because they also played the sound, so I was like, did I miss something? All right, bottom left.
No, I did it telepathically. Everybody on stream heard it, but you didn't. I was just yeah. MaxPax.
Some of these intros, pretty long songs.
Yeah.
All right.
Good times. I'll still never forget when I got to tune into GSL, and I can't remember which player it was had Tay Tay as their intro song, and that was, the things they can get away with, over there. If it weren't for copyright laws in America, that would be I would ask for that in my contract. I need to be introduced to, you got to at least have that 3-second clip of like 22 or something. You know what I mean? I need that.
Yeah, I absolutely is so envious. I'm still envious of the creative freedom the music has over there in Korea. But the fact that in Pro League, every player had their own song, I actually did think was so cool. And that was during my time of figuring out K-pop, so I would get all these little snippets. I remember CJ here, Effort had a song that I'll always remember that introduction, and that helps bring these really cool memories. It attaches to a player, and then you think of the song, you think of the player, vice versa. We just don't have that now.
Yeah. I think that those are always really fun bits of personality. And for anybody who thinks that they disagree, you all love watching Raynor and Hearthstone rap to whatever it is they've got on during their games, okay? I'm sure if Raynor wanted to have if he could have 3 seconds of his favorite music, I think that would really change the tone of how some of these games start, because I've heard it can be some hardcore stuff, So learn a lot about people from the things they do outside of just playing games.
I think you're absolutely right, because Raynor even says that he's like, oh, it's not very good, but it really gets you in the mood. It's like, oh, Raynor, always.
That's when we find out Katy Perry's Firework is the song he listens to before every competitive match he's ever played. Look at that. He gets his Spotify yearly review, and it's like, you listened to Fireworks 7,000 times because you played in all these weekly cups. Congratulations.
So, oh my goodness. So when it was popular, he just had to be in a car and he heard it 7,000 times.
That'll do it as well.
Ah, don't remind me. All right, so some lings get in. We had no gold bases taken, even though Blackburn offers the ability to do so, as well as the ability to mix things up build order wise. Again, neither one of them wanting to play that game. So now it's a question of, it's on Bly, right? It's on Bly to do something different, because the macro to macro that happened last game did not end in his favor.
No. So he's got to change it now, right? I don't think you can't just let MaxPax chill, go up to 4 bases on 3 Stargates with no ground army and just start building carriers. I think that we definitely need to see a little bit of an adjustment out here on the Zerg side. But is this even a map where it's strong? Is this a map where where the German lift ride is going to be a powerful push against Protoss?
The German taxi, the German lift ride. I like it.
Synonym is my favorite word.
Yeah. It's not that I can really think of having to crawl through the slow zones and then over to their actual third base because Force knows Queen's up a ramp to their natural is like not usually what we see, right? Blackburn can be complicated when siege units get in between your third and natural, so that's why Terran can look very strong in those positions. But yeah, as far as the Queen walk here, I don't think it really it favors that particular style. But it's also just apparently Bly doesn't really. If there was going to be a Zerg that I was like, yeah, I think he'd do it any map anywhere, I would have said Bly. But Bly is not going to be that type of player here. Again, skipping the Roach Warren, going, oh wow, 5 gases thrown down all at once as he gets as many drones as he can, while also defending the Void Rays and the gold base. Finally, but also as a macro element, just made sense.
Yeah. Next time that we make one of those little pre-game deals or bets or whatever predictions, we gotta clarify that Bly will take the gold base within 5 minutes. Not necessarily as his first or second base, but he'll just take 4 bases in 5 minutes, and that's where we are. He started it at 450, so we were close, but unfortunately, he did take all of his other expansions ahead of this one. The Void Ray is kind of playing around this spot. There's no creep, but as you can see, even with the mega lasers, they kind of mostly tickle the Queen. It's going to get one of them in exchange for some full damage or real damage on a Void Ray. Don't think that's too bad at all. And then is going to pull back. The Oracle was able to get in and do a little bit more scouting too, since most of the Queens were preoccupied with defending the gold base. And there's the Spire Zombie Grub, but this time we also have a Hydralisk Den, so it's not all going to be on Corruptors potentially.
I could see why that might have worked out, because I think it is kind of like, oh man, that's a lot of Corruptors really fast. That's maybe an older way of playing. But MaxPax didn't buckle. He didn't falter against that. So I do like the addition of the Hydralisk Den, because that might mean we might try and only make like a handful of mutas and then into more of like the Hydra, I guess, bust type of mentality, type of macro game. This is getting awkward, though. There's nothing to support these Queens except other Queens that came too late, too awkwardly. They kind of lined themselves up in a row for the Void Rays to come down one by one. And Spore Crawler, you're not very helpful here, buddy.
Wow.
This actually might just end before it begins for Bly.
This is way uglier than I thought it was going to be, Zombie Grub. The Void Ray pressure. Unreal. I did not think getting one Queen early like that was going to open the door for this kind of maneuvering, but unless these Lings get all of the probes, I'm not feeling super confident in them either. There are a couple of Zealots here. Oracle came back, but doesn't really have the energy. Void Rays will come back. I think he should be fine on this Nexus, though. There's not enough Lings. Even this cannon's going to take out most of what is left. So MaxPax has the gold. He's on 4 bases. Bly's going to rebuild in the corner, not the gold expansion. So talk about getting some work done. He's got the Robo Bay. The Fleet Beacon's halfway through with Flux Veins. I think, yeah, this is kind of MaxPax right now. He's looking for the cruise control on the dash, and he's just gonna let this one ride.
I think Bly definitely had to rethink his strategy, because we did see him start a Hydra upgrade, then cancel it, and then start it again. And now he's decided to go into 17 mutas. This is always his strategy.
Okay.
I personally don't think so, but now it is his strategy. So we'll see how that works out. Go into the main, hit the probes hard and fast, and then hope the Void Rays are constantly distracted defending as opposed to attacking.
Yeah, and with the cannons and batteries that he's been building at his outside bases, unless there's a huge something exposed in the main, I'm not even 100% certain that, unless he gets the jump on the Void Rays and kills all of them immediately, no, they get recalled. With the support network that he's been, really consistent on back home, I feel like he can almost contest this a little bit. He is going to move away from that Nexus right in time for that cannon to go down. But I was going to say, if he was able to get a few batteries like that, all he really needs to do is stall, right? Because he's got the Fleet Beacon. He has a bunch of Stargates. The Void Rays are getting killed by those Mutalisks, so this is really big. Maybe he's going to start to transition out of this. But we should expect that the Phoenix, with the upgrades and the fact that he has 3 Stargates, should be able to more than easily deal with the mutas. It's just about how much damage can the Mutalisks get done before those Phoenix come into play.
The fact that he got 5 Void Rays is actually much more than I thought he would. I thought he'd get like 1 or 2, but then cannon plus shield battery plus Stalker Warpins, and the carriers were made. They just had to move their butts over here. Didn't expect a lot of those Void Rays to go down. Might open up an opportunity to go back into Corruptors if Bly hadn't lost his gold base and lost all that economy that he was building, you know? Because if he was on 5 bases this entire time with 85 drones, then he just did that damage with the ability to probably make like 15 Corruptors all at once. Now he can't really do that. He can make like 5 Corruptors at once. So ultimately, I guess, with all 17 units having now fallen, it wasn't really that scary. Honestly, I don't think it mattered much at all.
Yeah, got rid of some of the Void Rays, but he didn't really have the money to do a big follow-up punch, right? He wasn't really ready to punish there being Phoenix and just a couple of carriers without much Void Rays support anymore. And now, again, 3 Stargates. He has the upgrades now on the Phoenix, so those are going to be there to get in and mess with the AI if he's trying to hit those carriers. And, you know, Blackburn, the advantage of this map, when you think about it, if you're playing with a high-range army composition like MaxPax has, it's very easy to do things like deny this gold base from the other side when you have carriers and Void Rays. And even if the Zerg had a million Hydralisks, they can't run through minerals. Zombie Grub, you got to mine him out to open that path. So he's just kind of stuck, and never a fun place to be for the Zerg. Just at this point now, wondering if Bly will try to force the fight here, or if MaxPax is going to go for that northeast expansion, and it looks like he is. I don't know that he can afford to avoid a fight anymore. If he loses his economy here and he gets knocked down to like these 2 functioning bases, or just three against that army that MaxPax has, I don't know how he builds anything that can stop it.
Probably can't, but it also might be the only option is to live another day, even if you're pretty much mortally wounded. And that is what Bly's recognized, pulling away the drones. Still loses a handful of them after he just built them, too. Like, he just had it on 15. And still losing the fight, says he hopes to buy more time for reinforcements. There just isn't enough. They're not coming fast enough. And MaxPax is just bullying Bly at this point. He's got an army that can't be defeated, and he's just running through all of Bly's bases.
Yeah, I really don't know how much more he can do at this point. The Muta switch kind of felt like I'm gonna play my trap card or something over here, but instead like he had anti-trap or some other counter trap card, and this is basically where it's fallen down to. We've still got the carriers here, the Void Rays letting loose. The Corruptors are kind of in attack move mode. They were shooting interceptors, not the most efficient way for them to fight this army, and MaxPax is going to claim this